back to session 3 of the podcast guesting masterclass. I'm Jessica Rhodes, the founder and co-owner of Interview Connections. We're the world's first ever and leading podcast booking agency. And since 2013, we have booked over 30,000 podcast interviews for more than 800 clients who have felt like the best kept secret and are now leveraging podcast guesting to become an authority figure online. A quick reminder, we have a bonus session on Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to be teaching the 10 strategies for repurposing your podcast interviews and creating compound visibility online. So go to interviewconnections.com/Friday to fill out a brief application. That's an invite only by application only bonus session that is more so aimed at 6+ figure entrepreneurs. So if you want to attend that session, fill out the application so I can send you the Zoom link to attend. A quick recap of the session so far. In session 1, we talked about laying a strong foundation for your podcast guesting strategy, getting your goals very clear, understanding who your target audience is and what types of shows you need to be a guest on. We talked about creating your podcast one sheet, which is that one pager that's going to make you stand out to podcast hosts. In session 2, we talked about the strategies for monetizing your podcast interviews, why podcast listeners and hosts are much easier leads to close as clients than cold leads from other sources, and then how to attract and close clients who hear you as a guest on podcasts. So I want to know in the chat, for those of you here live, which of the monetization strategies was your favorite? Like, what was the one takeaway from session 2 that you're like, oh my God, that's such a good idea. I can't wait to do that. I want to just know, what was your biggest takeaway from session 2? Because the strategies for monetizing, it's one of my favorite things to teach because podcast guesting it's like the gift that keeps on giving, because it's not just the visibility to new audiences, it's also the host relationships. It's also the opportunity to really expand your brand. So Rachel said, making the host look good. It's so huge. We're here to learn, how do I get leads from podcast interviews? But you really get that by focusing on giving and making the host look good. The power of immense value. Absolutely. Cole says, how to treat the host. Yeah, write down those green room chat questions. When you have a really great green room chat, that sets the tone for your interview. It makes a huge difference. Udana said, to create relationships with the podcast host. How can I make the host look great? I love it. So amazing takeaways. If you're like, I can't remember, go back and watch session 2. There was a ton in there. Take notes because the replays come down on Tuesday, April 16th. So you just have a limited amount of time to watch the replays. So take lots of notes. All right, in today's session, we have an incredible panel of some amazing Interview Connections clients, many of whom have been where you are now. They came to this masterclass, they learned all about podcast guesting, and they said yes, and now they are rocking and rolling and getting on podcasts and doing interviews. So you're going to hear from their unique experiences. The replays will be removed from the replay page at midnight on Tuesday, April 16th. So you just have less than a week left to watch the replays. If you want to rewatch any sessions, or if you need to watch sessions 1 and 2, you just have a few more days. We have the homework post and the replays posted in our Facebook group, Guest Expert Profit Lab. You can find that group at interviewconnections.com/group. And the doors are open for our Amplified Authority program. So book a call with me right now to get all of your questions answered so you can sign up with the discounts and the bonus gifts by Tuesday, April 16th. Our Amplified Authority program has been designed to perfectly set you up for success with podcast guesting. You'll get booked on 30 targeted podcasts that uniquely fit criteria that we co-create in your onboarding process. We'll design a podcast one sheet for you that has your bio, your topics, your questions, and we'll create a guest expert media kit for you. And you get 2 intentionally scheduled interview audits. So that's where our coaches will listen back to an interview that you've done as a guest on a podcast and give you personalized coaching and feedback. You'll get networking opportunities with our client community through calls, our Facebook group. We have coaching call opportunities where you can continue learning about the strategies for maximizing your return on investment as a podcast guest. So our program is for you if you are running an established 6, 7, or 8-figure business, you are growing, and you need to break through to the next level with visibility to new audiences. Our program is definitely for you if you've got a great business, but you feel like the best kept secret. And something that we're going to touch on today, if you know that your best content comes from you answering questions and being in conversation with people in your industry, then podcast guesting is for you, and we can absolutely help get you booked on the right shows so that your brilliance flows naturally in a way that's most in alignment with how you love to work and market your business. So the investment, it's normally $1,850 a month, so 10 payments of $1,850 or $17K paid in full. If you sign up by Tuesday, April 16th at midnight, the investment is $16,000 paid in full or 10 payments of $1750. We've already had 2 people take our pay in full bonus, which is where I will write your one sheet copy for you. So if you are one of the next 3 people to pay in full by Tuesday, I will write your bio, your topics, and your questions for your one sheet so you can move into podcast guesting with full confidence that your messaging is on point. And everyone who signs up by Tuesday is going to get a microphone, a mic stand, and a ring light. So book a call now at interviewconnections.com/call so we can talk one-on-one and get all of your questions answered. So without further ado, I want to get into our panel today so that you can hear from some amazing entrepreneurs who are out there practicing this, getting interviewed, and seeing amazing results. So first up, I would love for Christina Woods to share. Hi, Christina.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing amazing. It's so good to see you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. So, Christina, I would love for you to share for those in our masterclass here who haven't yet met you. Who are you? What do you do? And tell us about where you were when you were taking this masterclass and first kind of exploring leveraging podcast guesting.
Yeah, thank you. So, I'm a hypnotherapist and a coach and an energy healer, and I work with high achieving women and help them empower themselves to recognize their worth, shed old programs that we all have, and help them align with their authentic selves. And where I was leaving a 30-year corporate career in a completely different field. And I had changed into this passion career in a completely different field, obviously. And I was sitting on this master class, and like you mentioned earlier, I do really well in conversation, but no one knew about me. So this was a really good opportunity. I thought I had no credibility in this industry other than I knew I did a good job. I was seeing clients, but I was establishing myself in an entirely new field. So having come from a place that I had established myself and built credibility, this was a new opportunity for me to really tell my story in a very casual, comfortable place where I could share stories, success stories with clients, and just share my passion, which is my personal story of why I do this, which is a big part of why people want to work with me. So it was a place where, hey, here I am, best kept secret, like you say.
Yeah. And what were some of your fears or considerations before you made the investment? What were some of the things that maybe were holding you back? Because I would love for you to share that. It helps those in the masterclass that are thinking about making this jump, but are like, I don't know
Yeah.
about this or I don't know about this. So share with us where you were mindset wise at that moment.
Yeah. So I was petrified that I wasn't going to be good enough to actually be one of your clients. So if anyone's worried about that, that was me. And maybe you're not, but that was me. So I was definitely afraid that I wouldn't have the skills or enough credibility to be ready to talk. I was afraid that my business wasn't advanced enough. Everything and anything you could think of in terms of imposter syndrome, because I was leaving something I was very comfortable with, and I was in something new, and I had never done podcasts before. Never, ever, ever. I had listened to them walking on the beach, but I had never done them before. So talk about needing someone to walk me through every step. So I felt really, really comfortable once I made the decision. But I mean, I confessed on here that I truly thought you would interview me and say, you're not ready. And when you said I was ready, it was baby steps. It was like, how do I do this? Okay, this is how you do this. This is your one sheet. This is the best practices. And I used what you said. I used the tools. I used them. I followed them when I was, tripping or not feeling comfortable. I had you listen. I practiced. I followed them. And it was really nice to have somebody hold my hand, because I was definitely very fearful of how I would do this.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you shared that because really how I work and how we work is that when you book a consultation call, I take a moment, I look at your website, I look at what you write, and from that moment if it doesn't look like it's a fit, I will let you know, but if it does, we're going to have a conversation, get your questions answered, see where you're at, what your goals are, and then I'll invite you to make the investment, which of course I invited you to because I thought this would be
Yeah.
a great fit for you. Can you share about just share some of your victories, your wins? You've been such an excellent implementer. You've really implemented the teachings that we give on how to maximize your ROI as a podcast guest. So give us some highlights of what you've done that have resulted in some really great wins.
Yeah, so right out of the gate, I had some wins. One of them I talk about a lot, but I still am just, blown away by it. But I always post, and I posted before I even had my first podcast go live, that I was going to be on a podcast. And just from that awareness and credibility, I was booked to be a speaker at a retreat. My first retreat in this new business in the wine country of California, which was amazing. And from there, I booked 4 clients. And then from there, a few years later, I was booked to be a speaker at a national organization. So, I mean, the ripple effect from that. I've been on now, I'm very consistent. Some of my best clients are from hosts. So I definitely practice the green room conversation. And that took me some time. I was afraid to do that, but being on the networking calls and hearing how other people, had great conversations, I thought, all right, I'm going to dip my toes in this. And instantly, I made a great rapport with them. They became great clients. They've referred family members to me, their children, their spouses. I mean, these are great testimonies that, you're building a great rapport. I'm going to be featured on a global digital magazine cover, an article soon. And it was absolutely because of all the podcasting and credibility that I've built through interview connections, 100%. So
It's amazing. And I've seen, can you talk a little bit about how you like your confidence has grown so much? You went from being
oh
petrified that
yeah.
I would turn you away to now you're being featured in this global digital magazine and speaking on live stages and all of the things. Like, talk about how you've just grown personally. Like, how has this transformed you?
Yeah. And I even talk about it in the article. And we talked about that is, sharing your story and having people be interested in it and having the phone ring and people say, this is just a natural conversation podcasting. So, and I'm very much, it's very easy when you're in response. So, being able to find that people want to know about your story. So whatever you're selling, whatever you're talking about or whatever your business is, to have it be a natural conversation and know that you're passionate about it from a place of genuine authenticity, and people hear that and they resonate with that. And what I do know, I mean, in hypnotherapy and personal development, everyone we have in common is connection. No one wants to be disconnected, and so podcasting is a way to connect. And to know that people wanted to know my personal story and just what I do, and then say, yeah, I want more of that. Boy, did that build credibility, confidence. And also it helped me realize, okay, they want to know more of this, they want to know less of this. It helped guide my messaging, which was not clear when I started. I definitely lacked clarity in my messaging or my branding and what should I talk about or who are my clients. And through this journey, that has become so much more clear about who I am and who I want to work with and what they really deserve and need, and what I'm worthy of sharing with them.
I love that. And for everyone watching live, if you have questions for Christina or any of our speakers, put them in the chat because this is your opportunity to get your questions answered here, especially from those that are out there implementing this, who have different businesses and things like that. Are there any final words of wisdoms or words of wisdom or tips that you'd want to relay to those that are kind of just getting started with podcast guesting?
Use every opportunity through the process to just ask questions. I send a handwritten note to everyone. Yeah, it takes 5 or 10 minutes, but the results of that are so wonderful. I mean, the opportunity to have an extra conversation with them in the green room, make a friendship. Maybe they don't turn into a client, but I assure you, they think of me when someone else they think of might be a client. So the networking, the connections, even I've made friends. I mean, I'll take an extra friend, even if it's not a client. So just all the opportunities and all the tips that you give as a family when I don't understand something, it's just an open door policy. So I would say just really take advantage of asking questions and tapping into your experience and your wealth of knowledge and wisdom that you have there with Interview Connections.
I love that. Christina, where can everyone find you online? If they really connect with you and they want to learn more about what you do and find your interviews and all of that, where can they find you?
My website, ChristinaLWoods.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank
Again,
you.
book your consultation call at interviewconnections.com/call. Next up, we are featuring Jim Stevenson. Hi, Jim.
Sorry, rookie mistake. I was on mute. Hi,
Hi.
everyone.
So good to see you. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. I'm excited. It's fun.
Awesome. Yay. So I would love for you to introduce yourself and what you do to everyone here in the masterclass.
Cool. I'm Jim Stevenson. This is something I need to work on, which is my elevator pitch because it's terrible. But essentially what I do is help companies to grow. I've got 25 years of helping companies to find opportunities to grow, to fix themselves, to reorganize themselves, to restructure themselves through marketing, product development, technology. But it all comes down to I help companies to grow.
Awesome. And so tell everyone here, where were you? Not physically, but like, where were you in business? What brought you to podcast guesting? When you first learned about this and learned about the strategy and met with me, what led you to want to invest in being a guest on podcasts?
It's funny you should say that because it is literally where I was physically. Uh,
Okay.
I had built up a great business in the UK and Europe, and the last 18 years of my life, clients were coming to me. I had a great relationship with them, a great reputation. But physically, I had moved to the US, and my reputation wasn't there. I didn't have the same network. And that's actually what led me to Interview Connections and to speaking to you.
Awesome. And what has the experience been like so far? It's been a few months, and I've seen you on some of our networking calls and our group calls for clients. So tell us about your experience being interviewed and being a part of our community.
I found it really quite good, actually. Bordering on amazing. I've been I mean, really, it's been since January, so 3 months, 3 and a bit months. I've had 14 connections. One of them got cancelled, just to be completely honest with everyone. And I think that was more because what I do and what the host did was so similar that he just didn't want to promote someone else onto his podcast, and that was cool. I've recorded 9 of them, including one live on YouTube. 5 have been published. One's getting published tomorrow. There's 2 or 3 that are waiting to get published. So, I mean, in the world of success, I couldn't have imagined it to be any better, to be honest. Um, Working with you guys is amazing. Amelia, who's my point person, is fantastic. She goes above and beyond just podcasting advice and gives me advice on everything else as well, which is fantastic. So yeah, I've had a wonderful time here and it's been hugely successful. So what's not to love?
I love that. I will take that. So, what are some of your tips for those? I mean, now that you've done a bunch of recordings and they're starting to go live and you've interacted with hosts, now that you're really in the groove here about 3 months in, what's your advice to the entrepreneurs here in this masterclass who are thinking about just getting started with it?
Um, One, do it. Don't think about it, just do it. Like everything else in life, just doing it is way better. You will learn as you go. It won't be perfect the first time you do it, but it'll get better. I think my kind of advice is in the same way as Christina. I started out with a lot of imposter syndrome, and I still have it. I think we always have it, but you get over it, you move forward, and when you get reactions that are positive, it helps. So start, move forward, make it work. But the big thing for me has been don't think about what you want to get out of the podcasting. Think about the audience and think about the host. And surprisingly, what they do is they think about you and what you get out of it. So it's a kind of really nice balance. But yeah, I always go into them thinking, who's the audience? What will value the audience? How can I pitch what I have to say towards that audience so that they're getting value out of it? And that seems to be working so far. And because of that, the host that I'm talking to, the Christina's point about the green room, your point about the green room in the chats, I've had some amazing chats. I have a new friend who now lives in Australia, which is fantastic, who interviewed me last week for a podcast. The guy is just amazing. Just as a side, he signs off his all of his podcasts with a mental health message, which I love. It's fantastic. Um, but yeah, think about the host, think about the audience, think about giving back. One of the hosts that I spoke to, we've turned a single podcast session into a 6-part series. One of them that I was really, really nervous about doing 2 weeks ago, just because of the topic and how proficient and efficient the whole thing seemed to be. They've now invited me back for another one. So yeah, give it a go. Think about the audience, think about the host, and then everything else comes back to you anyway.
I love that. That's such good advice. And it's so important to have that balance of the host is really spotlighting you. And so you really focusing on making the host look good just results in what more can we do together, you know? And that's such a great point. That's something I always like to spotlight is that people ask, is it just 30 interviews? Well, we're going to guarantee 30. And then you will actually probably get more because the host will invite you back. They'll refer people to you. People will reach out, invite you to be on their show. So there's more organic interviews that will get booked just as a result of you taking this action and getting out there.
Absolutely. When I started speaking to one of the hosts, and it's a relatively small podcast, the host was focusing on more of the soft skills of leadership. And I combine the soft skills with the hard skills, so the data, the understanding, the methodologies, the process. Her audience had never heard anything like that. So she was just really eager to learn more and expand it. And like I say, we're now planning a 6-part series.
That's so incredible. I love
Yeah.
that. Any final words of wisdom or tips that you'd like to offer to the audience here, other than just do it, book your call and sign up?
Yeah, to be honest, I think it is just do it. Think about the host, think about the audience, and just do it. There's nothing else to it. We all talk. You will go in front of a client later on today, tomorrow, next week, and you will tell that client what you do. It's no different. It genuinely is no different. One of the very, very little came out positive of COVID, but one of the positive things that came out of COVID is we're all now used to speaking on Zoom and video chats. It's just another meeting. Go and be yourself, have your personality, be you, and go and tell people what you do.
I love it. Jim, where can everyone connect with you online and find you?
My website is jimstevenson.co, but the best place to find me is on LinkedIn, where I'm Jim Stevenson. So if you look for Jim Stevenson, you will see this face appear.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jim. Again, everyone go to interviewconnections.com/call. And we have hot off the press a win from Christina Woods. Christina, please come back on the stage and tell us what just happened in your life.
Yeah, so I'm sitting here and one of the podcasts went live and she says, hey, our conversation went so natural and great. I want to collaborate on a project. Let's talk about it. Let's get on the phone and talk about maybe doing a series of classes or something together. So because we just clicked.
Amazing. I love that. This was not scripted. This is really what just happened.
It just happened right now. I can show you my screen.
I love this. Yeah. So you make this investment, you work with us, you get started, you implement. This is the type of thing you're just going to be on a Zoom call and be like, oh, someone wants to collaborate. Oh, someone wants to work with me. This is how it works. I love it. Thank you so much, Christina. So good. So next up, we have Mel McSherry. And so Mel just started working with us, I think about a month ago. And she did this amazing post on social media. And I said, I need this message in our masterclass. So will you please come on session 3 and share? So Mel, hello.
Hello, how are you?
I am so good. Please introduce yourself to our masterclass. And if you can really just speak about what brought you to podcast guesting and interview connections and kind of the essence of your post, because I just loved it. And I didn't want to paraphrase it.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Mel McSherry. My pronouns are they, she, and I am an international business and life guide, author, speaker, and former podcast host. And I help entrepreneurs who are inspired yet overwhelmed to honor their lives and be the architect of their success through a spiritual tool called human design in partnership and collaboration with traditional business development tools, frameworks, and practices. And I, as you hear my title, podcasting has been part of my life for a while. And the essence of my post was showing people the shifts that I have made in my business to produce the same and probably better results. So as a speaker, in the past, before I used my human design, I would spend hours. I mean, I had like a litigious schedule of how I would stalk people, how I would reach out to them, how I would follow up, how I would book. And though I did book over 200 speaking events in 2 years, several of them internationally, it was this kind of exhaustive thing. And then when COVID hit in 2020, here in Chicago, we were in lockdown for almost 2 years. So everything moved to virtual. And I realized just even in that instance that my energy and my mental and emotional and financial profitability wasn't really coming from the actual traveling. It was the opportunities to share my story and to be accessible and to be a support. And when I started digging deeper into my human design, I found out that my energy comes in spurts. I am what's called a projector. I can only quote unquote work 2 to 4 hours a day, and I receive energy from others. I also have an area in my chart called a hermit, which means I like to rest and I need to rest. And so when I had that information, I was looking at how could I get back into the speaking circuit, but honoring those pieces of my design. And you and I met 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And I instantly thought of you and Interview Connections. I was like, well, duh, I love podcasting. I've been on several dozen podcasts in the past. Obviously, I hosted my own. Yeah, duh. So I attended this master class, I think in December, maybe it was January, signed up in February, and it's just already, again, mentally, emotionally, has been so profitable for me. I've already, well, me, through you, I have been booked on already 5 podcasts. The first one's recording tomorrow. And it's just been such a beautiful deep breath to have, to know that there are others out there doing the work that I'm not designed to do. So I could just utilize my strategy, which is wait to be invited into spaces and just have it be this really beautiful collaboration.
I love that. Yeah, it's been really interesting. I've learned a little bit about human design as well. And I'm a generator, I'm a 2/4. And so I also have the hermit in my in my chart as well. And responding, I'm a sacral authority. So I found that it really is an alignment for me because I can just go with like, what do I need to say? I go with my gut and my intuition and I just respond. And so, some people are like, well, do I need to like prepare? Like, how much do I need to prepare? And, personally, I'll look up who the host is. I'll listen to a part of their podcast episode, but I don't over prepare because I know once I show up, like I'll know what to say. I just trust my intuition in that way. So is there anything else you want to say for people who here, put in the chat if you know what your human design is, because I think it might be interesting to see. But if there's anything else you want to share about that.
Yeah, I mean, your type is one piece. Is human design is I call it the ultimate onion of personal development. There's so many layers. But I would say as well that when you just know yourself better. So for me specifically, I have what's called an open throat, which means I really do need to wait to be invited to share my thoughts. And again, in a podcast space, that's what's happening, is I'm being asked questions and being invited to share my insight, my resources. So that gives me the confidence when I walk into spaces of, I know I've been invited to be here. They already have my one sheeter. They already know who I am in an essence. And now I just get to trust where their energy and their audience really needs me to go within my story and share what support works best for them. So it just gives me that confidence that customization of how I share my story and what pieces of my story I do share is being guided by the space that I'm in. And I don't have to prepare. I just have to be available.
Yeah. That it really is my favorite thing, like the fact that you don't have to like over prepare and prepare too much. Like when you're giving a talk, when you're giving a presentation, you need slides, like you have to prepare for that. But with a podcast interview style content, you just show up, the one sheet has already been created for you, they have it, and it's just you just show up and you answer questions about your story, about your business, about your expertise, and you already know all the answers to those. So it's just truly, it's such a natural way to market your business. For those that
Absolutely.
really work well that way. Love it. So
Absolutely.
the Projector 3.5. So it sounds like this will
Yeah.
be great for you too. So Mel, where can people connect with you? I have some folks, Gabby wants to know, like, how do I know my human design? So for those who want to learn more about human design, how can they find you online?
Yeah, so the best place to connect with me one-on-one is on LinkedIn, Mel McSherry. And if you want to learn more about how I utilize human design, definitely check out my website, melmcsherry.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here. It was so great
Thank
to
you for
learn.
having me.
So interesting. All right. So again, book your call if you haven't already, interviewconnections.com/call. Next up, we have Melissa Broughton. Hi, Melissa.
Sorry. That's the biggest fear, right? What happens if I get on a Zoom meeting with everybody who knows what's going on and I can't figure out how to have my voice heard? So happens all the time.
That's okay. I was like, wait, did she leave? Where's
Nope, I haven't left. Still here.
Thank you so much for being here. So please
Sure.
introduce yourself to everyone here, who you are, what you do, and then, what brought you to podcast guesting and working with interview.
Oh, sure. My name is Melissa Broughton. I am the co-owner of a Sacramento-based bookkeeping and tax firm. My partner is my husband, so that creates an interesting, I would say, dynamic, but we've been navigating through it pretty well. What brought us to podcasting? We looked at podcasting when we started our own podcast. We had looked at podcasting as a way to get our message out to a greater audience. So we're not what I would say your typical tax firm is. We're more of a boutique tax firm. We're very selective in the clients we work with. Primarily, we focus on business clients and helping them to reduce their tax liability. So if I could pick a more boring topic, I don't know that there's one out there. Generally, I say that and it puts kind of people to sleep. But personality-wise, we're not your typical tax people, I guess. We've got a lot of personality. And so that podcast for us seemed like a way to get it out there. And we did, I think after we had done about a dozen podcasts, I started to look for ways to get guests booked onto our podcast. And that led me to a competitor of yours. And I can't even remember the name of his company. I had a conversation with him. It was one of those, when you talk to people and it's just not a good fit. It was not a good fit. I was interested in finding podcast guests, but who I did not want to work with him. So I found you next. You and I had an absolutely awesome conversation, and it opened me up to the thought of, us being guests on podcasts. So it's been a very interesting process.
I love that. Well, I'm so glad. Like that really just shows the importance of having a consultation call, because there are a lot of companies out there, and this is just a good, this is just good advice for every business owner. We all have competitors, and your ideal clients are going to find you. And when they feel connected with you, you're going to be their choice. So I'm so glad that we found each other and that we had a good conversation. So what are some tips and words of wisdom, as with a podcast host and been getting interviewed on other podcasts as a guest, what are some tips that you can share with our audience from your experience?
It's so much easier to be a guest on a podcast than to do your own podcast, right? So any nervousness that maybe we had before going on and being guests on podcasts really went away as soon as we both got our own interviews down. And sometimes we do interviews together, which is interesting. I always worry that we'll, we've been married for 20 years. We've been business partners for close to 20 years. We've raised kids together. So there's a lot of just, we're in sync with each other. And sometimes with certain hosts, I think that can be overwhelming. The pre-interview meeting is a great way to kind of weed that out and see if it would be best for, Eric's personality to meet with them or my personality to meet with them. I totally forgot your question. I'm sorry.
No, you're doing great. We were asking just for some tips because of your experience as both a host of a podcast and getting on other people's podcasts. Would love just any tips or pieces, wisdom that you can
Sure.
share with our audience.
So showing up and being present and being genuine. I mean, they're asking you all of the questions for anybody who might be nervous about it, especially if that, I don't know, inferiority complex or anything like that is what is standing in your way of making a decision. And I know you're not doing this for this to be a big commercial for you, but if that's what's standing in your way, the hosts are going to ask you questions that you literally know all of the answers to, because they want you to be successful, as much as you want to be successful. They don't want to have dead time or dead air on their shows. So really just showing up and being authentic. And what I've found is the results of the podcast. I think we've had 3 now that have gone live. We've done 6, I believe, is the clients that come through. And we've had a lot of consultations that have been booked as a result of it. The timing was probably a little off on my part because we're in tax season, like we're in the trenches of tax season, and he's got all these consultations and so do I that are showing up. But there are people who it's just such a genuine connection, and I think that's the probably the greatest benefit of this whole process.
I love that. So you've had several leads come in and book consultations who are just such a good fit. What is your call to action? What are you saying in the interview that you believe is helping to convert those leads?
I think it's the biggest piece that we talk about, and Eric, my husband always laughs when I say this, but the tax system as it currently is rigged. Like it is completely rigged. And so you get on there, you get on a podcast that's maybe a new business owner's podcast or a real estate podcast or a law podcast. And you really the host gets all excited. Well, what do you mean? And it's not about that we're helping our clients to do anything illegal or anything like that. It's we're simply changing the way that the game is played. So rather than the traditional tax preparer who takes information as it's stated from clients, we actually work with our clients throughout the year. So in most cases, we're meeting with our clients 4 to 6 times a year before their taxes are filed. So we're helping them to know, what they need to do to be as advantageous as possible, depending on their particular plans and goals.
I love that. And since you have a podcast, this is a common question for people that have a podcast and have a business. So ultimately the goal is more business, but you also have the podcast. So one of the questions is, are the hosts generally okay with you talking about your podcast too? So are you kind of mentioning that you have a podcast in the interview, then giving a call to action to book a call with you or your husband? How are you getting visibility for both your show and your business?
So I've found that I ask that question in the pre-interview or when there's email communications before. I want to gauge the host on how comfortable they are with it. I certainly don't want to step on anyone's toes because I always want to be invited back, right? But then the other piece is I want the listeners to actually feel like they've gained some knowledge and not that it's been a 30-minute sales pitch. Because, I've listened to podcasts like that and it's terrible. And I just don't want to listen to them again. So I would say the kind of working out the what's okay, what's not okay in the pre-interview process. And I've found that no matter what, in the show notes, the hosts are always more than happy to, provide free downloadable content maybe that we make available, which we try to do. And we'll always have our website in there as well.
Yeah.
But I would say, to answer your question, it's about a 50-50 split. So I found that some hosts are really happy with it. Other hosts are very, even in the pre-interview questions, there's no brand promotion, no, and you just go with the process and go with it.
Yeah, that's such good advice, because ultimately we're being invited to their house, and so you always want to play by their rules. And regardless of whether they let you pitch and talk all about what you do, or if they're like, no, 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 like this is pure value. However it goes, when you give a great interview, the listeners who like you will find you. They'll just Google you. They'll seek you out. So, that's such a great advice to just talk in the green room chat, talk in the pre-call, find out what the parameters are. And when you're a great guest, it doesn't matter what the scenario is, you can absolutely attract leads from every interview.
Yeah. And I will say, of the 3 that have been published, the one, we were encouraged to promote our podcast and promote just different things that we have going on. And the other 2, we were not. It wasn't that we were expressly told we weren't allowed to, it just wasn't encouraged. And the 2 that we were not, I would say 15 to 20 consultations booked from each of those. So that's huge.
Yeah, that
And
is.
I wouldn't, it certainly wasn't my expectation. I mean, when I did the cost benefit analysis of your services, I figured out that it would be probably 3 new clients would be a break even point, and we've far exceeded that. So I can't wait to do it again.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to hear that. It's like music to my ears is when someone says, "Oh, I'm just in the beginning and I've already exceeded my expectations." So if that's not a testimonial to get you booking your call with me, I don't know what is.
Absolutely.
Melissa, is there any final pieces of advice or anything else you want to share with our audience here? And then, of course, how everyone can connect with you if they need you.
I would say the biggest piece of advice is find a tax professional, especially if you're a small business owner. Find a tax professional that you feel like you connect with and that you feel like is communicating with you and doesn't make you feel stupid or somehow inferior, which I found a lot of professionals in my industry tend to do with their clients. It's a terrible practice, but it's become somewhat acceptable. So find somebody that you feel like explains things to you, so you understand what you're doing, and you'll be. And how they can find us, Busy Bee Advisors with an S at the end.com.
Busy Bee Advisors. I just want to say that because I think the volume kind of went down a little bit. busybeeadvisors.com. Connect with Melissa. Thank you so much for being here, Melissa.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have Wendy Cole. Hi, Wendy.
Hi, Jessica.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
All right, Wendy. So I would love for anyone who hasn't yet met you, introduce yourself and tell us about your experience so far with Interview Connections.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Wendy Cole. I'm a transition mentor specializing in guiding individuals through major life changes. With focus on self-acceptance and professional growth, I assist my clients in overcoming their fears and doubts to achieve their goals. My expertise ranges from supporting transgender individuals in their transitions, parents of transgender people who need help understanding and dealing with this, and to empowering women entrepreneurs to conquer their imposter syndrome and self-doubts. Having personally navigated many significant personal and professional transitions over my lifetime, including my own gender transition, I bring a unique perspective and proven strategies to help others thrive.
I love it.
That was my revised elevator pitch.
That's perfect. So Jim was talking about working on his elevator pitch, and you've got yours. And I love that you shared that, both sharing it and then pulling back the curtain on that's my revised elevator pitch, because this is a really big benefit of both podcast guesting and working with Interview Connections, is that you continue to work on your messaging, your elevator pitch, how you talk about what you do gets really fine-tuned the more you get interviewed and, of course, communicate and have lots of practice introducing yourself on calls like this.
Mhm. And I've actually just finished, and it's being reworked, I guess, all my revised one sheet, questions, everything. Because Jim mentioned it, and I know Christina has it several times as well. Going through this, you really find out what you're all about and who your audience is and how to reach them. And it's really helped me both personally and professionally refine what I do a lot. And as far as the benefit of podcast guesting as a whole, it's put my networking on steroids, literally. My very first podcast interview was with a really nice woman in Australia. I joined her mastermind group. The first time I went to the group and introduced myself, I wound up connecting with a podcaster from Arizona there. And together we met, we talked, we started working together she wanted to interview me for her book. She wanted to interview me for her podcast. And we just connected and really hit it off. She became enthusiastic about the topic that we were working with. And we've been collaborating ever since on creating a podcast series. I think we're up to around 10 or 12 episodes now. And I named it Demystifying the Transgender Journey because one of my other aspects for doing this was how many people actually have met somebody who has gone through this transition? How many people have talked with them? How many people have answered questions? How do they understand their lives? Unless if you're listening to the politicians and the so-called religious people explain it, you've got a totally warped idea of what we're all about. And for the most part, I would venture to say you've met transgender people and just never realized it. So that's what I'm doing, putting my story out there completely, openly, candidly. And one of the things that I found with the hosts, and it took me, because they wouldn't ask me the, in-depth questions. So now what I do is when the conversation is heading kind of that way, and I get a sense of it, I go to it. I take the conversation in the directions I want it to go in. And that has had a really amazing response with most of the hosts. They really get into that. And I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from hosts.
And you know what, Wendy? I just had a connection happen in my mind. When I first started booking my dad as a guest on podcasts, which if you don't know my story, that's how I got started. My dad was my first client and he's a marketing coach. So it's pretty, general information. But he had in his one sheet, here are some suggested questions. You can ask Jim anything. And that's something that you always do. And I think that's great advice for everyone. Here are some suggested questions. You can ask me anything. And I love that because it really puts the host at ease that they can ask anything. So talk about that.
Right. Well, in 2015, when I moved into my first apartment and met my first neighbors, after confirming all their suspicions about me, I followed up with, I'm an open book. Ask me anything you want to, and absolutely nothing is off limits. And I've done that ever since, both in conversations one-on-one with people, in social settings, etc. And I started doing that right away from day one with all the hosts. It really does change the whole tone of the conversation. I do enjoy the pre-podcast interviews, because I can really put it all out there and see where they really do want to go with it. But I will go in depth with anyone on any subject, and they know that. And I've gotten some very, very positive feedback on that as well. I also have gotten a lot of emails from people in the audience saying how much I expanded their horizons, expanded their knowledge. They had no idea what life as a person born this way is about.
Mm.
And if I can, this is kind of almost my legacy. um, I'm in my 70s. I'm nowhere near done living yet. I have a lot of energy and there's still a lot of life to go. And I'm putting it out there so that people know that I was here.
That's so amazing. And something that you and I have talked about is that your target audience, which is it's unique from like my target audience, Interview Connections target audience, they're all trying to get visible, like they're trying to get themselves known, but your target audience is very much in hiding.
Oh,
You
very
know?
much.
And so, yeah, can you share a little bit about why it's so important for you to be visible?
My visibility shows other people in the transgender community that it is possible to actually transition nowadays and stay as part of society. I actually have clients. I live very openly. I don't go around telling everybody that I was born transgender. I don't advertise it. When I become friends with somebody, then I'll reveal it. Otherwise, I'm fine. And as far as conveying that to others, it gives them a sense of, yeah, I can go out and get help for this. It is possible now. The possibilities didn't improve until this century. The last century was horrible for me and for everybody else. It was considered a psychological condition with no treatment and no cure. So this has been a very positive change. And I've had people actually reach out to me and say, this is what I need. Now I just have to make up my mind that I want to hire you to help me with this. With guidance and something like this, it goes so much better and so much easier on the individual. I've had one person open up her session with me with, I'm tired of living a lie. I'm scared to death and I have no clue what I'm doing. I said, great, that's why you're here. Let's get to work. And we started in. 6 sessions later, she came in with her legal name change done, her new driver's license, and was living full-time. So it is possible. And you just have to get into the right mindset and just do it.
Yeah.
It works. And as far as my networking goes, I'm now getting, I got an email yesterday and somebody scheduled an appointment on my calendar. She's the CEO of a media company, wants to talk to me. I have no clue what it's about at this point, but I'll take it.
You're open to all possibilities.
Possibilities. That's what life is all about. That's what this whole 9-year journey that I've been on has told me. Life is about possibility. And it's our beliefs, our thoughts, and our emotions that will block us from seeing those possibilities or even knowing that they're available and knowing that they're there.
Yeah.
And that's where I was for a lot of years, because I had tried to do this in 1970, a long time ago, and it was a complete disaster. And until my first therapy session in 2015, I really never talked to anybody about how I felt about myself. That's 45 years of holding this in. So I'm done. I'm out there and I'm telling the world what this is all about.
I love it. And I just love the message about possibility. If there's like one of the things, if I could just shout it from the rooftop and just make sure everyone hears in this masterclass and everyone who wants to be a podcast guest, is how many possibilities come out of you being open and visible and just being open
Right.
to possibilities and opportunities. I mean, Wendy signed up with us in July. So
Mhm.
we're coming up on a year, and now you've got a podcast series, you're working on a book, you're a part of new communities. I don't know if in July you could have predicted the exact things that were going to happen.
There was no predicting this. It's just kind of like get out there and just do it.
Yeah.
And I've wanted to, I think I met you first time in a master class in 2021.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yes, by 2022, this was what I wanted, and I figured out a way to do it. And we met in July of 2023. I signed up, started with the onboarding, and did my first podcast at the end of September. I've done a total, I believe it's 18 18 or 20 with you so far. And I've done 4 on my own as a result of having connected with people and reached out to people on LinkedIn and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a wonderful experience and a very personal growth experience as well.
Yeah.
I've never really had a problem being shy after I transitioned. Before, forget it. I was very closeted and very hidden and very much to myself in my own little world. I had a secret to hide, and I had to deal with all the emotional turmoil of that. Podcast guesting totally changed that.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Wendy, the comments in the chat here are just amazing. You're touching so many people right now with your authenticity and your heart. And where, for people that want to connect with you more, where can they find you online? How can they connect with you?
The easiest way is meetwendycole.com. And I just put all my social media, my website, the link to Meet Wendy, and all of that is in the chat right now.
Thank you so, so much. So everyone, now is your time to book a call with me. The stories on this session have been incredible. So many different entrepreneurs and, wins and success stories and lessons and tips for you. Now is your time to book a call. This is the action you've got to take. So book your call with me. Let's get your questions answered, because I want you to be a success story. I want you to be speaking on the next session 3 of our masterclass. Mel signed up just a couple months ago. She's here, sharing. And so book your call. Let's get you out there. Let's get you on podcasts, because there is so much possibility, so many opportunities await you. You just have to take that step. You have to make that investment. You have to step forward, because once you do, the world opens up. The universe does respond to you actually taking action, and then all the opportunities come. But if you're just like, I can't do it, but how do I get visible? Well, you got to take the step. You got to make the investment. You got to move forward, and then the opportunities come. So book your consultation call right now at interviewconnections.com/call. We've got discounts and bonus gifts expiring on Tuesday, the 16th. There's 3 more spots left of my pay in full bonus, which is where I write your one sheet copy for you. So get your call on the books. Also, the bonus session on Friday at 5 Eastern, interviewconnections.com/Friday. Apply to join that, where I'm going to teach you the 10 strategies for repurposing your podcast interviews and creating compound visibility online. So cannot wait to see you on a call, see you on Friday, and welcome you into the Interview Connections client community. Thank you to all of our speakers for being here and sharing your story, sharing your wisdom. We're so, so grateful for you. And thank you everyone for being here at the masterclass. I will talk to you soon. Bye.